How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here and welcome to a video talking about the Oppo Find X3 series. In particular, I want to talk about the Oppo Find X3 Pro, the successor to the Oppo Find X2 Pro, which I thought was the unsung hero of 2020. It did a lot of things really well for a flagship smartphone, and if anything, I think the price tag of the phone, especially in this region, made sure it didn't progress as well. And internationally, I thought the OnePlus 8 kind of stole its thunder, and I hope that doesn't happen with the Oppo Find X3 Pro series as well. Now, in terms of the design of the smartphone, we've already seen it in the past. They basically shared a voice post where they posted the design of the smartphone, and to a lot of people online, it looked pretty much inspired by the Apple iPhone 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max. Now, in particular, I thought the inspiration was there to a certain extent, but definitely not to the extent that people were pushing at. I thought the design looked pretty unique, and I'm gonna put a few pictures of the phone on screen. This is all coming from WinFuture. They've had pretty much the entire phone leak in all of its glory, so I thought I'd use the pictures and go over what to expect with the Oppo Find X3 Pro. Being a 2021 flagship smartphone, it's only fair to start off with the display of the Oppo Find X3 Pro, which is supposed to be a 6.7-inch panel. Now, the panel is supposed to have HDR10 Plus certification, as well as a full 120 Hz refresh rate. If you sort of rewind back to 2020 to the Oppo Find X2 Pro, it was the only phone, if not the few phones, that could actually run a 120 Hz refresh rate and a Quad HD Plus resolution simultaneously, and it looks like the Find X3 Pro is going to push that as well with its Quad HD Plus panel. That aside, the AMOLED Quad HD Plus panel will also pack an in-screen fingerprint scanner on the Find X3 Pro, as well as Corning Gorilla Glass protection. Now, I don't know if WinFuture is wrong here or they've just misquoted, but according to them, the panel is supposed to have Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection, whereas the Find X2 Pro actually had Corning Gorilla Glass 6 protection. So it wouldn't make sense for Oppo to take a backward step in a next-gen smartphone, but this could be due to either a mistake on WinFuture's part, because all of this is still very much leaked information, or it could be something to do with Oppo saving costs and bringing down the overall price tag of the smartphone. That's something we'll have to wait until March 11th to find out. But it's really interesting and exciting. The overall design of the panel is, I think, still gonna have the same punch hole style cutout, and that brings me on to other things about the smartphone, things like IP68 certification, which I think is a given, stereo speakers, NFC, Wi-Fi 6 support, etc, etc. But more importantly, the front-facing camera is also housed in this punch hole style cutout. It's a 32 megapixel camera on the Oppo Find X3 Pro, which is the same resolution as the one found on the Oppo Find X2 Pro from last year. However, this time, according to WinFuture once again, you'll be able to do 4K 60 FPS video recording, and that's an upgrade from the Find X2 Pro, which could only record at 1080p 30 FPS using the front-facing camera. Moving swiftly along to the actual back of the smartphone, that's where you're gonna find a quad camera setup on the Oppo Find X3 Pro. This is already an upgrade from the triple camera setup you found on the Oppo Find X2 Pro, and the Find X3 Pro is supposed to have a 50 megapixel primary camera lens with a Sony IMX766 sensor, which is a 1 by 1.56 inch sensor, as well as a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle camera setup as well. Both of these are upgrades over the Find X2 Pro, which had a 48 megapixel primary and a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle sensor. The ultra wide angle sensor on the Find X3 Pro will also be able to give you macro shots, so that's something you can look forward to. And aside from that, the other two cameras you'll find on the Find X3 Pro come with a 13 megapixel telephoto periscope camera, as well as a 5 megapixel micro lens, which I don't know what it really means according to WinFuture, but this is again something we'll have to wait and see. There's talk of optical image stabilization being available on the primary lens as well. We don't know if this optical image stabilization may carry over to the ultra wide as well as the other lenses. That's something to look out for. And as far as the video camera capabilities of the primary camera is concerned, again, 4K 60 FPS should be a safe option, but we'll have to wait and see if all of the lenses can film at that rate. But given that Samsung has already done this, I think Oppo will be the next company to adapt to this, because that's sort of the trend that all of these camera smartphones are moving towards. And finally, let's talk about the things that sort of go missing in the specification list, as well as the things that are sort of confirmed on the smartphone from the get-go. We're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 processor on the smartphone, which is a no-brainer, alongside 12GB of RAM and 256GB of internal storage. We think this would be UFS 3.1 to stay in trend with the other smartphones that are coming out recently. As far as the battery of the Oppo Find X3 Pro is concerned, we're looking at a 4500 mAh cell with 65-watt charging in there as well. We're not sure if Oppo will include the power brick with the Oppo Find X3 Pro, but it's a safe bet to assume that Oppo will, considering OnePlus will be shipping chargers with their smartphones. So Oppo being the parent brand of OnePlus, they'll sort of follow what OnePlus has done, or sort of what has been said by OnePlus. And at 193 grams as well as 8.3 millimeters thick, I'm definitely excited to try out the Oppo Find X3 Pro. Oppo is known for making smartphones that are lightweight, powerful, and yet give you the practical experience that you deserve from a flagship. So this is turning out to be a very interesting smartphone. We're not sure if this thing is coming to the UAE anytime soon, but we'll know more about the smartphone on March the 11th, including the pricing of the smartphone, which holds a key sort of role in whether or not this smartphone will do well and will compete with the other flagships out there. But that's about it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. This was Vaibhav, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.